Hello there, folks. I want to thank you all for being here for Miguel and his family today. Your presence is truly appreciated. Before we get started, if you have your cell phone on you, if you wouldn't mind turning it off or putting it on silent, that way we can proceed uninterrupted. Be sure we appreciate that. And with that, pastors, we're going to get started with the service for us today.
Hello, folks. You don't know me very well, but I will tell you a little bit how I came to know this family, Alex and Cage and Haley. They're in my youth group, and so as you can see, this is my best suit. I'm about 6'7", so I can't find like a coat that fits me very well. So I came, no disrespect, but I came looking like this, sorry. But, and plus also ties, they don't work well with me. But anyways, I just want to thank you to Alex and Cage, and I will say this. I will never say nor think that I know what anybody is going through when something happens. Everybody has something that happens in their life that I think that's the worst thing that you can say is I know how you feel. I know what you're going through, because you don't. But out of respect and honor to Alex and Cage, I wanted to do this for them. Because they were in my youth group, and it's very important that I be there for them. I be there for you. I spent about probably 2.5 hours, 3 hours, had the family over last night, and we talked stories. And I think that that's very important because my name is John, by the way. I forgot to say that, but okay, there you go. So my name is John, and one of the things that I realized is stories are very important because I've had a lot of death in my family, but the thing that kept me going is family, friends, relationships, and what that person left in my heart as a legacy that I can carry on. And that's very important because a lot of times what we can do is we can hear those stories, but I think the person that passes away wants us to carry that legacy on. And I feel that that's very important. So I learned a lot of things about Miguel last night. And some of them you will be hearing here today as we unfold stories from the family. And I've talked to the family and they're going to be coming up here and speaking to some of these. I'm going to give you a bigger picture of who Miguel was. And I learned a lot of things about Miguel. But first, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and read, have Cage come up, and he's going to read the obituary.
Miguel Rodriguez, age of 40, of Kettering, Ohio, passed away on July 23rd, 2024. He was born on January 22nd, 1984, to Miguel and Debbie Norris and Rodriguez in Dayton, Ohio. Miguel graduated from Fairmount High School, class of 2002, where he met his future wife and best friend, Autumn Cage. Following his graduation, he started his career as a dispatcher, where he predominantly worked with the Time Warner and Dayton Freight Line. Throughout his life, Miguel was passionate about his agriculture and recently changed his career to pursue his passion full time. He was known for his extraordinarily hot peppers and even won several chili contests at work. Miguel's father played a huge role in his life, and they shared a love of gardening, animal care, and cooking together. Miguel and Autumn's house was a haven for rescued animals, where they have spent countless hours caring and nurturing them along their daughters, Amara an avid film buff and can often be found watching new movies or going to a collection of hidden gems. Miguel was happiest when he was gathering his family and friends to enjoy a delicious movie or a delicious meal and a cheesy movie. His loving, tenacious character will be missed by all who knew and loved him. He is preceded by his mother, Debbie Norris, and his personal hero, Richard Simmons. Miguel was survived by his lifelong friend and loving wife of 13 years, Autumn Cato. Children, myself, Katie Rodriguez, Alex Rodriguez, and Amara Rodriguez. His parents, Miguel and Kathy Rodriguez. Julie and Roy Martin. The brothers, Phil and his wife, Kathy Norris. Autumn's parents, Kim and Steve Cato, and numerous friends, extended family, and rescued animals. Thank you all for being here.
So I really like this to be casual, because when I work with teams, I like casual things, not so serious, even though this is a serious moment. But I want this to be centered around family, and around stories, and around who Miguel is. Some of the things that I learned in my own life, when I've gone through problems in my own life, which I mentioned before, the faith in God is very important too. And did I put my trust in Him? Did I knew that I had somebody at my back? Faith in friends is another person. It is very important that you can trust, that you can talk to, because a lot of times when we go through mental issues in our lives, a lot of times what we do is we basically say, "How you doing?" and we pass them on. But we really need to stop and think, is this person really struggling with something? If so, how are they really doing? God gave us 2 years to listen, and at the time to speak. But a lot more people need to be listened to rather than spoke at. And even when you're listening, is not the time to look for an answer to give them, but to listen and say, "I'm here for you. What can I do to help you at the time that you're going through some stuff?" And like I said, carry on some of those stories of legacies that Miguel did. I'm going to paint a bigger picture of who Miguel was that I learned from the family. He loved music. He had a big heart. Very passionate. He never gave up. He loved films. He would grow hot peppers. I just want to know, I knew he made his own chili, but did he make his own hot sauce? He made his own hot sauce?
That's your face on it.
Really? Wow. Okay, that's multi-talented, to be able to do the chili and also to make the hot sauce. I've tasted some of the hot sauce, but those chilies, they'll tear you up. He would grow his hot peppers. He rented bootleg VHS out of his locker. I did that later. It was on DVD. When they would go into the movie place and they would actually try to take the picture. It was probably one of his best. He was a perfectionist. He was funny. He had lip. But also on top of that, I learned if you shoot something at him, he's going to shoot it back. Right? He was very loving, and the way that he loved was through his cooking, obviously chili, and obviously now chili sauce, but the way that he loved was through growing plants. This is interesting. Tarantulas. He loved all sorts of different snakes, multiple snakes or more, tortoises, lizards. Oh, there's a dog and cat. Okay, there we go. And a hedgehog, rats, but he loved animals. And this is the way that he also loved animals, is the same passion that he loved those animals, he also loved people. He would drop everything to reach out to you if you were going through something. Had a big curiosity, which makes sense of why he would fix things that were broken, such as tablets, Game Boys, whatever that would be, but he would be adventurous and he would fix things. Dryers, washers, electrical. The man had a multitude of talent. He loved to learn new things. Very patient. And I guess with him fixing things, you have to be patient. Very adventurous. He would go out and just explore. But he was one that did not stop learning. Like I said, he loved cooking, but the way he showed love is through his cooking. And they said he was an awesome cook. He was a handyman. Roy, which you'll meet later on to tell stories, is he would send Miguel Looney Tunes, Three Stooges, musician links, just to help Miguel get through the day. And I think that's important because when you think of somebody that you're close to, send them a link, send them something funny, make them laugh, make them get outside of their thought life, and help them heal through funny stuff or different links or music. But he did it to make him feel better. Because Miguel, like I said, would drop everything and be concerned about whoever he was around to come over and help him. Of course, he had a passion about Richard Simmons. Very passionate about that. One thing that I thought was very important, 90 days he worked and he changed his work environment. That is amazing right there, that you just don't go into a job to work it, but you have the power and the skill to change your work environment. The slogan that he would have, instead of divide and conquer, he said we need to be united and build. I think that's huge. That we need to take that slogan to heart. As opposed to going in and dividing and conquering and breaking things down. But we say, how can we unite? And how we can build. With that, I'm going to open it up to Alex, and he's going to share some stories. And then I've asked certain people in the family to go ahead and share stories to give you a bigger picture because they knew Miguel very well.
I just wanted to say thank you, John, for coming despite what you got going on. As you guys all know, my dad is like anyone else, and that's me. One of the things my dad said to me the most these past couple of years
was Alex. I'm sure you don't know what to do without a father. I mean, I must be the craziest hippie you've ever met. I'm sure you're disappointed or I mean, my response was always, "You're the craziest hippie I've ever met," but I really couldn't ask for a better father. I always found that he was one of a kind. My dad was the most passionate, persistent man I know. He had so many hardships during his adulthood, but would always put others before him, despite those hardships. He had told me a couple times that the reason why he changed his life around was because of my brother Cage and I, when we had come into his life. He always loved us so much, and always said he loved us. He always asked us if there was anything we could do, anything he said for us, just because he wanted things to be perfect. One memory I cherished the most was time he got us into a tarantula. I used to be very agoraphobic, and he sat me down. He was really hot, and he just took me into his head and said, he grabbed my head, really against his, and said, "Alex, this is genetic. Grandpa Miguel has it, and so do I. And I'm sure you have it too. But we can just feel the animals." And I had no idea what I was talking about. It's crazy shit. But I did exactly that. I was so scared that started, but I put my head down and just closed my eyes. And somehow I could feel what my dad was talking about. I could feel the tarantula's eyes. And we sat down and we had that tarantula for what felt like an hour. A couple of years later, I had 3 tarantulas. He had 2 tarantulas. We got a boa recently. I was pretty terrified because I was used to all pythons. Boas are a little different. We both sat down, got a beers, got a little high, and did the same thing, put his head up against mine. And we had that both around our necks for hours. It's the number 1 rule of bows, you don't put them around your neck. But I could just feel its energy, I could just feel its vibe that my dad and that crazy hippie bastard was talking about. So the memories like that I have with my father that I'm going to cherish forever. He and I are the closest we've ever been. So, thank you.
It's okay, you can clap one. The next person I'm ordering up is Grandma Roy. Thank you.
If I don't put these on, I'll make a spectacle of myself. I will say that I think one thing Miguel would do in the hardest of times is bring levity. He had a wonderful knack for giving you what you needed, when you needed it. And Miguel's been a part of my life, my daily routine, 40 of the 58 years of my life. I've shared that with him. He had an incredible and resilient mother in Debbie, a wonderful and dedicated father in Big Miguel, and a brilliant, fast-thinking brother in Phil. He taught me so much over the years, and it was an honor to be a stepfather. Although sometimes the relationship was more accomplice than authority. When I was thinking about what to say today, what to share, I asked that question, what to share. And 3 things came to mind, I think that so many here could easily do. One was an example of Miguel's innate humor, sometimes at our expense, but it was still funny. Another was an experience made possible by Miguel that he would likely never have had otherwise. And the third would be a wonderful example of his love. One of the things I'll start out by saying is As a baby, I learned to put pants on. A little infant, via Miguel. And when I first tried, he would give me that little business with his feet. And I was losing each one of the attempts. And his mother saw me, and she taught me to stick your hand through the pant leg, grab the foot, bring it out. And suddenly it got real easy for that part. But as soon as you learn something, there was always something that they had outgrew or they had worked their way around. So what you may have found to get around a situation or work through a situation and maybe outgrow before you knew it. Another example is when I went to feed him, I was told he needs to have his veggies first, and then his service for the little girl bottles or those jars. And he wouldn't have anything of the veggies. He was all for the dessert, but my job was to get him to have those veggies. So I hit upon the idea of putting a little bit of the dessert at the front of the spoon, and then the icky stuff on the back. And that was effective for a short time. When I think about an experience made possible by Miguel that I would have never had otherwise, I was approached in probably January of 1997 by his mom. And she said, Miguel wants to know if we'll take him to a concert. And I said, who is it? And this was before we had internet. I know my son Phil was involved in the internet long before I was. But at this time in our house, the rest of us didn't really have internet per se. You can just look things up. So, and I asked, well, who is it? And she said, it's a person by the name of Marilyn Manson, and they did a remake of, I was told to be Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams, and I thought, honest to goodness, my initial impression was, she sounds cute. We'll do that. So I had been to a few concerts, and we strolled up to the front, picked up one of his friends who is here, and we shared some memories. We strolled to the front of Hair Arena, and I had never been to anything quite like this. There was a queue outside before they let anyone in. There was this huge, like 55-gallon drum that they were chucking. They were like checking as you went in. There may be people in this audience that was at that show, but they were checking as you went in. I don't recall it being necessarily a frisk, but there were plenty of things they were putting in this big drum and confiscating. And so that was my first indication, and Debbie's, that this is maybe a little different than we're accustomed to. We're kind of puzzled. So we get inside and we get up to our seats. Thank goodness we weren't on the floor. And we were sitting, and there were fights breaking out before the show that, in my recollection of it, to our left and to our right. And there were guys with black lace stockings. And this was different. I hadn't been to a concert quite like that. You know, this fights breaking out and the different apparel people were wearing on. And when the show started, I'll never forget the sea of humanity that on that floor just going back and forth. And it was just as unwieldy and violent on the stage by the performers. And it was truly for the two of us, a little frightening. We looked at each other, Debbie and I, at one point, like, and we didn't speak it necessarily, but it was communicated, what have we gotten ourselves into? And it was a bit scary, and all I can say is, thank goodness Debbie was there to protect me. The last thing I'll say before I go is an example of Miguel's innate humor. Sometimes at our expense, but it's still funny. When he was a little boy, and he may have been 3 or 4. He was young, but old enough to be a little wise guy. And the phone rang and I was in the bathroom. And he knocked on the door and said, "You have a phone call." His mother dispatched him to get him. And I said, "I'll be right there." Well, when he returned to the living room, Debbie said, "Did you tell him?" And he said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, what did he say?" He said, "I'll be right there." That's Miguel. And to Debbie, Big Miguel, Phil, and Little Miguel, thank you. Thank you for, from the bottom of my heart. I love you all. Thank you for touching my life. And I'm truly grateful that you've allowed me to share this journey with you. And I just want to say that Miguel was not hesitant to apologize to his loved ones and say thank you for sticking with me. And I said, "Miguel, thank you because you stuck with me and you were forgiving." And he truly had a wonderful heart, and he will live on with us here and get us through a lot of difficult times because there's so many experiences we have to draw upon. Courtesy of me that I know are invaluable to me. So thank you for listening.
Frank Roy, could I ask you to talk about Nita?
What was that?
About
Oh, yeah. I think this is a story relating to is that Little Miguel had a way of working any of us adults to get what he wanted. And he would take him somewhere, and he had a way, no matter how frustrated or even angry you got with him, he would look at you with those little puppy dog eyes. And he would end up getting what he wanted, and that was certainly me, to a certain extent his mother, because she was far more strong than I think maybe I was, and the same for his dad, Big Miguel. And he would come home and tell us stories of, him getting things and working to get things when he would visit Big Miguel. And Big Miguel would tell him, one toy, and he would tell us these stories, and it was so beautiful because he had never really get to get the toy. And I would say to him, if I took him out, "Miguel, one toy." And he would always get the things that he wanted, if we could make it possible. And that's part of my wonderful memories of sharing life with Big Miguel and Debbie and Phil
now is when he came home and would tell those stories that involved, him talking Big Miguel into a toy. No matter what it was, I understood Big Miguel's position because I knew how hard it was to say no. And I think that even Phil, by extension, when Miguel would contact him for something, no matter when it was, or how maybe it was inconvenient a little, I think Phil tried his best to drop everything and be there for him. What I'm saying is that we all loved him so deeply, and we might try to get out of doing something that Miguel was either wanting or wishing for or hoping for or requesting, but most of the time he got his way, is I guess one point. He had a way with Big Miguel, he had a way with me, and his mother and Phil. We've all tried our best over the years to not disappoint him, because truth be told, he wouldn't disappoint us. And I hope that's the story you was talking about. But yeah, those are just wonderful memories of just him playing that little role. Even though he was a little tiny boy, he had a way of getting what he wanted. But it was very sweet. And that's just a wonderful memory for me, all those little stories he would share.
You can clap again. Okay. I just want to let you guys know that I was at ABS this morning, and I explained a little bit about you guys. And so all the high schoolers are very important, and they're with you. And so just want to let you guys know that. One story that I had that I did not know is I used to help with the club and do DJ and do sound. And there was a place called the Cellar. I don't know if anybody's gone there. Another place called the Attic. All right. Well, Miguel would go to the Cellar. Miguel would be Miguel, and as a teenager. And I apologize this because I did not know this, but as security, he was getting a little rambunctious, so I had to let him exit from the club for a little bit while he calmed down. But I didn't know that story until later on. I think later on he came to the Attic in Kettering, and he was probably surprised to see me then, or other people were surprised to see me doing security again. So when mosh pits would break out, things like that, then I had to step in and take care of us. That's what I could. Maybe some of you guys have been there. Hopefully I didn't throw you out though. Because I try to be very careful. So I want this to be more of kind of like you're sitting around the dinner table. And we've heard some stories. But I want to invite anybody that wants to come up and tell a story, or I'll bring the mic back to you, whatever your comfort level is. But I want it to be kind of like, this is his time, this is your time, that if you had a story about him that somebody needs to know or share, we're around the family dinner table right now. And so, like I tell kids, just raise your hand, I'll bring the mic back to you if you want to tell a story. So I open it up to you guys. It's very important. Because usually through stories is when the healing process starts. Usually through stories is when the grieving helps. I won't prolong, but raise your hand if you want to. Come on up, John. Nope, I'm coming back to you. All right. Sounds good. We're all here for you, okay?
So I'm going to tell a story with Miguel that showed how big his heart was. When I was 16, it was Christmas, and my mom was broke and couldn't afford anything. And he saw how much it hurt. He showed up to my house with 2 raffle tickets. And they were just the simplest things. It was a t-shirt with pop leaf on it and a spindle of 50 CDs. And I don't think he realized how much that has meant to me to still this day. He was my best friend for 27 years. He has the biggest heart that anyone I ever knew. And that's the story I wanted to share with you.
Anybody else? Don't have to be professional or anything like that, it's just tell stories, listen to this talk. Alrighty, so I don't feel so embarrassed. I'll get back up here. Anybody else, one more time? Yeah, that's good.
So, talking about Miguel's heart and his love of video and film, we had a house fire at one point in time, and we ended up with these VHS tapes that were just covered in the VHS tape, by the way. things that used to use. And he put them, because he'll take them covered in soot, and he put them on the DVDs for me, and I was incredibly grateful for that.
Yeah, I forgot to explain the VHS tapes for the younger generation. They're big and bulky, and fit in this big and bulky box. Anybody else? Yes. I need an option tag now.
I'm the friend that went to Marilyn Manson. That was my very first concert, and I'll never forget that. That was probably the coolest thing that his parents could have done for teenage boys back then, to take us to a Marilyn Manson show. And it was total chaos, but it was probably one of the best memories I have from my teenage years, was to get to do something like that. I wouldn't have had another opportunity to do that if it wasn't for you guys and Miguel. So, that's all I got.
Yeah, I know Marilyn Manson too. He was a youth pastor too. There you go. You can stretch it somehow.
So I live up the street from Miguel on, my uncle, I think he came to the way tonight. So even not long ago, he was very excited about this turtle he had received from somewhere. And brought it to the house, just Indian and waxing. Hey, you want to see the tortoise? Sure. Come on outside. So he was actually walking his tortoise up the sidewalk. As we walked into this tortoise, he ran up and 10 houses up around the corner. He was totally excited about it. It was really comical to me, but I went out and saw him out of the gables myself. And everything else he was passionate about. I was prone to go down his house and watch next door, and I called him one day, he was, he didn't know I was there, but he got messing with his pepper and came back to his garage. He felt the need to take me in the basement and show me his new plants that he'd been growing. He was very proud of them.
She was.
He tried, that was the day, but they were nice plants, and he had a huge space for all the animals in the basement. Well, kept in nursery plant, the old place and stuff. But yeah, no, he was very interesting individual. You know, it was very fun to talk to him and stuff. At the time, he was just totally excited like a little kid to see it in his eyes. It was like everything we knew. So yeah, it was very nice to know him. And, very interesting.
Anybody else?
Joe.
Yes. There we go. Back up front.
So a story I found out was when my father was very young, closer to maybe 14, 15. He had a friend named Ken, and Kenny, a couple friends of here even told me this story. Kenny was very nice. He ran a video store, and you guys must know my dad was a huge collector of movies, thousands of them. And he and Kenny would be so close that Kenny would leave the store, my dad would wash it for him. And, turns out, a couple years after knowing Kenny, it turned out that he was a murderer on the run, and he was on a CBS 60-second type of show, and, they still, to the point he passed, kept in touch in prison. He still sent letters and all that, so I think that's, even if someone does something wrong in the past, he's still there to make sure they're doing okay, even if they are locked up. That's the type of person my father was.
Thank you, Kenny. Who all went to the attic or the cellar? Anybody? There you go, yeah, awesome. Maybe some of the bands you would know. We'll talk about that.
Miguel was a very thoughtful and kind person. One of the only memories I really have of him was when my brothers would go to their house for the weekend, and I really miss them. So I'd be like, hey, like, what do you want to see tonight with you guys just this one night? And Miguel, like, even though I was his ex's daughter, like, I wasn't related to him at all. He included me, and I came over and I ate dinner with them. Like, it was keeping the guy out really good. And then so. He was very creative. I remember, like, one of the only things I remember about that man was, he had a 2-liter bottle full of water, and he put a flashlight underneath it, and that was the flashlight. That was like the night light that we had in the room. And I just always thought that was really cool. I was like, wow, this guy's creative. And we just watched movies together, so it's just, I still remember it, probably 15 years ago, so, yeah.
Anybody else? I'll bring the mic to you. Okay. We'll get you, and then we'll get you.
So I knew Miguel throughout high school and after high school, and I was around for a long time when we had Paige and Alex and they were little. And my little girl, she's like a year younger than guys, so we would take turns babysitting and etc. On Saturdays, I ended up not having a babysitter, and I had work and I was a server, and every Saturday for about a year and a half, he would take my daughter, and I'd go on $30, and at least twice a month, if not more, he'd go to the zoo, he'd go to the aquarium, and he would spend like 60, 75 hours with my kid, and he was just the greatest role model for my daughter. He was like one of the greatest people, but you boys, and I got some stories. I have no idea. I still tell these stories to this day. There was one time he was asleep and he calls me after he wakes up. He said, oh my God, I don't know what to do. He's like freaking out a little bit. And you woke up before him, which a lot of times you would. And there was one time you guys worked together as a team because you were a great team. And you carried a tank, I think that had a snake in it. And you threw it off the second floor balcony. And there was just glass everywhere, a snake that you never found. He's like, I don't even know what to do, there's a for it. Just sit there. He's like, you know, you can look. He's like, I'm afraid to look. Or one time he calls me freaking out because he's like, man, he woke up for me and he's sitting on the couch and y'all would still get past it. And you would stand on a chair, pull the chair over, work together, undo all the locks. He put extra locks on his door because of these boys. And in diapers in the middle of winter, they tried sneaking out, go play in the snow, and he caught guys. But I mean, it was crazy stuff like that, but he would do anything for you guys. He was so proud of you. He loved you so much. And that's it.
Thank you, Shane.
Hi, my name is Tracy. Miguel and I were close in junior high and high school. We spent a lot of time together. We would go back and forth between each other's houses. Roy would often drive us back and forth. I remember Miguel's love of animals. He was always collecting another animal. There's always something that he would try to find room for, or design cages for. And so I wasn't surprised at all to hear that he continued that passion going, because that seemed to be something that he was really interested in, was taking care of animals and seeing all the diverse types of animals that he could manage to care for. He also, I remember his dream at the time was to be a director. He loved the idea of taking existing film and splicing it together with other things and putting it to music and creating his own like music video. Some of the stuff was really creative. I remember sometimes there was this math teacher that encouraged his passion and would let him actually play it when the lesson was over in math class. I don't know if anyone else remembers that, but so I remember him putting things together like that all the time. He loved to kind of create his own music and videos. And he loved to discover movies that maybe no one else had ever heard of and bring them to share them with others. And he was just a really fun guy. He loved to get in a little bit of trouble, loved to catch things on fire and, things like that. But it was all good fun, and we had a lot of great times together.
Any other ones? No one missing, right? Speaking of animals, I told this story yesterday, is my brother, which is no longer with me. We went to a Thanksgiving dinner, and I didn't expect it to look like a Griswold, because he has 21 cats, 5 dogs, and 1 raccoon. And I was just like, oh my gosh. As soon as the turkey hit the table and the cats came up on the table, I was like, okay, I'm out. But he loved cats, he loved plants, and he loved things as well. But here's some of the stories today that you can take with you. Maybe you get a glimpse, a bigger picture of who Miguel was. But what Miguel would want you to do is take something to heart and carry on the legacy of who he was. Because a lot of times that's how we keep a person alive. It's something, a story, or a personality, or a characteristic of who they are. And learn to unite and build. If that's his slogan, unite and build. I want to read a psalm, Psalm 23. It says, "This is what has helped me. The Lord is my shepherd. He gives me everything I need. He lets me lie down in fields of green grass. He leads me beside the quiet waters. He gives me new strength. He guides me in the right path for the honor of his name. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, depression, anxiety, stress, whatever that valley is, I will not be afraid, for you are with me. Your shepherd, your rod, staff, they comfort me. You prepare a feast before me, right in front of my enemies. You pour oil on my head, my cup runs over. I am sure that goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life. And I will live in the house of the Lord forever." One thing I want to say about that is, even though we're in a dark valley, that we have something that we can rely on. And I want to challenge you, just like I challenge teenagers and youth today. A lot of times when we take selfies, what do? Or if I were to take my phone and I were to put it out here and take a picture of everybody, I bet you everybody in here including me, would be looking, did I make it into the picture? I think what we need to do is say, do I see anybody in this picture that's hurting right now? That I can maybe call, text, send a link, send something goofy, and help them with what they're going through in their darkest time. We need to reach out of ourselves and say, hey, what's going on? Can I come over and let's talk? And I'll listen. And I challenge you, starting today, go ahead and say, other people are hurting. What can I do to help? Sorry. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you that we have friends that you have put in our lives that can speak to us, that we can trust. And Father, that we can learn from these stories today that the legacy can be carried on and on and on. That the light is not snuffed out, but each one of us can carry on the legacy that you have for us, that Miguel has taught us, and that we can bring into other generations to come. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you all. This does conclude Miguel's service here today. Before we go, one thing I'd like to note, there is a reception being held at Jenny's house after the service here today, so you all are invited to go.
Hannah's house.
You heard the man. So if you want, we can help provide the address and all that kind of stuff here in a bit. And before we go, if you would feel comfortable doing so, I'd like to invite the folks starting at the back of the room to come forward and place your handprint on Miguel's urn, so a part of you can remain with him forever. So we'll dismiss from the rear forward. If you're comfortable doing that, you may do so. Again, thank you all for being out here today. Folks in the back, do you want to come forward? Do you want to come around this way here?
Fine. I fell asleep. I'll wake it up. Okay.
Yeah, okay. And I was thinking about it. See?
There's a lot of people here.
Yeah.
Yes.